Well, this is kind of nice, isn't it? Because 18 minutes is incredibly difficult to contain what you want to say to 18 minutes. Well, it is for me anyway. So we kind of showed you earlier on what goes wrong under pressure. So the human brain is constantly getting a signal from all the bodily systems, but particularly the heart, up the vagus nerve, which, as we showed you, was sort of erratic, and under pressure, super chaos causes that DIY lobotomy. So you're all built that way, and you'll have all had the experience when somebody kind of puts a challenge to you, and it doesn't really matter, as you saw, how small that challenge is. And it can be any type of challenge, you know, a challenge to your point of view, a challenge to your ego, a challenge to your relationships. Any type of challenge causes the physiology to go chaotic, causes the frontal lobes to be inhibited, and you become suboptimal straight away. And what's kind of interesting about that is that when the brain's inhibited, it also inhibits your perceptual awareness, so you don't realize it's happened. Right? So you can come out of a meeting and think, oh, that went well. And everybody's going, what do you mean that went well? You were rubbish. Right? But because your awareness is inhibited, you don't realize how rubbish you were. Right? So it's a bit of a catch-22. So this is really what the phenomena that underpins, you know, lots of different things that you'll have seen and experienced yourself or seen on television. So stage fright. You know, people get stage fright, can't remember their words. Kids go blank in an exam. It's the same phenomena. You know, my personal favourite, Family Fortunes. If you've ever watched that show, Family Fortunes, and you have the two people sit at the front. We've asked 100 people in the street to name something you put in a jacket potato. Jam. You know, it's hysterical. You know, when your frontal lobe's inhibited, you say anything. You know, and it's really funny. You know, Anne Robinson, The Weakest Link. You know, she throws you a simple question and then stares at you, and you blurt out any old sort of rubbish. So when you're, you know, up with your boss, you know, even if you might be the nicest boss in the world, you know, if you're feel a little bit under pressure, you suddenly discover you're talking rubbish, right? Sometimes you even have that awareness. You know, you almost sort of see yourself coming out with the most ridiculous nonsense. You think, why is this happening? And it's because you're built that way. The human system is built that way, is that under pressure, physiological chaos, brain shut down. You're designed that way. You think, well, why are we designed that way? And the reason is, the only reason you have anything in your physiology is survival. There are survival advantages to having brain shutdown. Right? And it goes back 200,000 years. So when you were wandering across the prairie, you know, and a big grizzly bear comes out from behind the rock and says, oh, human being, there's my lunch. You don't need clever thinking, right? In fact, if you stood there trying to be clever, is that the brown bear or the lesser spotted grey bear? He will eat you, right? So you need brain shutdown. Your thinking has to become very unsophisticated. In fact, it has to become binary. So you either have fight, flight, or play dead. Two choices. You either just drop to the ground in a faint, or you're prepared to slug it out or run. It's binary. Anything more sophisticated, you don't need. It will kill you. So here we are, 200,000 years later, and we still have the same biological mechanism. Right? We've basically got 200,000-year-old software, and we've never had the upgrade. Right? And we don't meet bear today, we meet each other. But in meeting each other, the same phenomena goes on. So we showed you how that chaos can cause somebody who's even good at maths, like Neil is, to not be, 200, shut up, you're putting me off, 200, becomes impossible, a simple task like that. I can tell you, I did this in the office of a chief exec of one of the leading retailers in the UK, and his first answer was 298, right? And he went, oh no, that's wrong. And he was so embarrassed that he got the first one wrong, he couldn't think of the second one. And we literally sat, rabbit in the headlights. He just couldn't come up with anything. So, as I said, you're all at the mercy of that, and the point being, until you've got control of this physiology, anybody can make you look like an idiot, right? And what's worse, you're doing it to yourself an awful lot of the time, right? Your own anxiety about your own performance is actually causing the chaos, so you're lobotomizing yourself. So a lot of people around you can trigger you into a lobotomy, but most of the time you're just lobotomizing yourself, right? So until you've got control of that absolutely fundamental basic, you might be brilliant one day, you might be poor. And who knows what's going to show up that day. So right at that fundamental, the cleverness of your thinking, or your ability to read the line on a golf putt, or your ability to come up with a great idea, or how to innovate that sales process, or any of that stuff, the quality of your thought, in fact, the very things that you think, and how well you think them, is hugely influenced by your biology. Right? So I'll give you a couple of live examples, and then we'll show you. We'll get Neil back out, and we'll show you how to control your physiology. So if you haven't clocked that your biology is controlling your brain function, if we held you and locked the doors, filled you up with coffee, right, what happens is your bladder gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It starts to send alarm messages to your brain, and you're getting one of these pees, you know. I've got to pee, I've got to pee, I've got to pee. And then if you ever had that experience where you can't get out of the room, but your bladder's going to start an alarm signal, and all of that, and you haven't got Pampers on, what you'll discover is you go deaf, right? You ever notice that? You can't hear people. You're so internally focused, my bladder's going to burst, my bladder's going to burst. You go deaf, you can see people's mouths moving, but you can't hear what they're saying, right? Then beads of sweat start to break out. You're trying to pee the urine out through your forehead, right? Your consciousness is completely eradicated, right? So that's the biology disrupting your consciousness. Well, I was in a meeting recently with a woman who was 8 months pregnant. And we were chatting away, and you saw the baby visibly ripple across. You know, it went like that. And you could see this ripple go across her abdomen. And she was chat, and then she went, oh. And for about 20 seconds, she was gone. Completely kind of left the room. And then she went, oh, hello. Sort of back in the room again. It was like her consciousness had disappeared for 20 seconds. So these are like live examples. You think. You just think, right? But what do you think and why do you think it? So I was talking to a senior exec who's a government think tank, right? I said, oh, a government think tank, oh, that's interesting. You probably sit around with loads of clever people debating the issues of the day and trying to come up with some clever answers. He said, yes, pretty much what we do. I said, have you ever thought about why those answers, not these other answers? Have you ever thought about your own thinking? He said, oh, I never thought about that. I said, well, you're a think tank and you've never thought about thinking. What's that about? So we just think, but we don't realize that what we think and how well we think it is actually influenced by something else. So thought is really an emergent property within your system. The very things that you think, you will think different things if you're happy than if you're depressed. And how well you think them will depend a lot on the biology. Right? So if you want to step change thinking, if you want to really, double or treble the quality of your thinking, you can't do it by thinking about it. Right? Wouldn't that be nice if I said, look, I've spotted the problem for you in your life, you're not thinking smart enough, right? So I want you to go away over the weekend, come back 25% smarter on Monday morning. All right. That would be nice, wouldn't it? If you could, I hadn't thought to do that. I'll go away and I'll think about my thinking over the weekend and 25% better on Monday. Here I am. It doesn't work that way. I mean, that's what Einstein said, isn't it? You can't solve the problems with the same level of thinking that created the problems. You need a new level of thinking, but the problem is, how do you get a new level of thinking? You don't get a new level of thinking just by thinking about it. You've got to change the context in which thoughts emerge. To use Chris's analogy, it's the context, which is, in human terms, is the biology. What is the biological context from which thought emerges? What is the emotional state from which thought emerges? You change that context, the biological and emotional context, you can change the quality of the thought and the actual thought itself. That is the source. Okay? So I suggest we get Chris back up, and I'll show you how Chris can learn, with no training before, how to control his physiology. You do not need to be Neil, a yogic master.
What happens to short-term memory?
There we go. Which ear are we on? This one? All right. If you just hold that. In fact, you can turn your chair around a bit if you like. Just turn your chair around a bit so you can see the screen a bit more easily. So exactly as before, is he still alive? Yeah. So we'll start recording. So again, just picking up each heartbeat. And so, again, the software is measuring the distance between each heartbeat and calculating his heart rate. Now, because he's just come out of the audience and walked up to the stage, he's going about 90 miles an hour, just the excitement of being at the front here. So if you want to control your physiology, this isn't years and months of practice. You don't have to be a yogic master to control your physiology. You just have to know exactly what to do. All right? So we're now going to show Neil exactly what to do. Mental block. So over here is a breath pacer. So when that goes up, I want you to breathe in. And when that goes down, I want you to breathe out. And at the bottom, there's a hold, so wait for it. Don't go too soon. Ready? And a long, slow. Okay, wait for it. A long, slow. And you can follow this in the room if you want. Just breathe in this rhythmic fashion. So nice rhythmic breathing. So long breath in and a long, slow breath out. Okay, so I'll leave Neil to do that, and I'll carry on talking to you guys. So of all the things that you can do to get your physiology under control, there are many, many things. But the start point is to do something that you can get conscious control over. And you can get conscious control over your breathing. Now, there are 12 different things, different aspects of your breath that you can regulate. 12 different aspects. So when you go to classes, whether it's singing, sports, fighter pilots, all sorts of things, they'll talk to you about breathing and, breath practice, yoga, but what are they teaching you? So, for example, there's a yogic practice where they teach you alternate nostril breathing. And that's kind of interesting, but in my view, that's number 9 on the list of priorities, okay, of the 12. The single most important thing is rhythm, which is what this is training. So we've seen that this measures the level of coherence in Neil's system. So when he's in complete chaos, he's down here in the red, and just with a bit of guidance, in less than or about a minute, he's up and into the coherent green. He is the yogic master. Neil brackets Yoda, right? Okay, no. So you can see the physiology has changed from this erratic to this coherent waveform in less than a minute when you know what to do. So of all the things in your breathing that you can do, if you start to control the rhythm of the breath, that will start to change the physiology, just as you've seen. Right? And you will start to become more coherent. So his frontal lobes will work better now than at the beginning of this trace when his physiology was erratic. You all see the difference? And even though the average heart rate is about the same during that period and during this period, the heart rate is the same, but the pattern is different. So when you change that pattern, you're basically sending better quality fuel from the heart to the brain, and the brain's going to work better. Right? And when the brain works better, you're more perceptive, you're more insightful, you're more clear thinking. You can understand how to problem solve. So as some of the other speakers say, you have to figure out when things go wrong, what am I going to do about this? Well, if your brain's inhibited, you probably won't come up with the idea or the right answer. But if you've got your brain switched on, you've got a much better chance. Does that all make sense? So when you hear people say to you, before that big presentation, take a few deep breaths, I'd say, don't bother. Because a few deep breaths isn't actually going to alter your brain function that much. And by the way, when they say deep, what they actually mean is large. They mean large volume breaths is what they mean, because depth is really where the air in the lungs is going. And what they mean is a few big breaths. But even volume is only about number 5 or 6 on the batting order. The number 1 priority is rhythm. Take a few rhythmic breaths, that will start to change your physiology. So you can put this to the test, right? Next time, before you may have to make a difficult phone call, rather than taking a few deep breaths or even a few large breaths, take a few rhythmic breaths. And rhythm really means a fixed ratio of in to out. And it doesn't matter what that ratio is, so long as it's fixed. So this is 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. 4, 6, 4, 6, 4, 6. You could do 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, so long as it's fixed. What you don't want is 4, 6, 5, 5, 8, 3, 3, 7, 2, 5. That's erratic breathing, okay? You want a fixed ratio. And then once you've got a rhythmic breath going, the second most important thing is smoothness. Because you can breathe rhythmically but staccato, so you could go that's entirely rhythmic, but it's staccato. So what you want is smooth, so which is a fixed volume per second around the entire cycle, right? So just as we probably both rowers, and my sport was rowing, that's what they teach you. So how the rowers are going to win us all the gold medals in the Olympics in 147 days, thank you.
The first one's in 151 days' time.
Okay, 151 days. They'll teach you, when you ever learn to row, blades in the water, blades out the water, in, out, rhythm, right? And then once you've learned that rhythm as a novice oarsman, the next thing is once the blades are in the water, even smooth pressure through the water, right? All the way through the stroke. What you don't want to do is put blades in the water, pull really hard and let it drift a bit, and pull really hard at the end, because the boat will go like that. In an even pressure, and the same with Chris Hoy on the bicycle. If you look at the metrics that are done around Chris Hoy, right? So I don't know whether you realise this, but everybody, when novice cyclists think it's just about the kick down, right? But then it's the drag and it's the lift. And actually, it's a circle. So if you look at the metrics on that, they've got to go circular and get as much pressure evenly applied around the whole cycle. So you'll see the Olympic cyclists will have a smooth and even force all the way around the loop. And those are the guys that win the gold medal. So, it's smoothness through it. So exactly as we've got here, is if we can, rather than go, and then go. So he might have rhythm, but has he got smoothness? As he gets smoothness better, he becomes more and more coherent. So rhythm and smoothness, exactly as you would cycle, exactly as you would row, gives you the most powerful effect. Does that all make sense? So one other thing, if we've got time, we probably have. I'm just yapping because we don't have lunch till 1 o'clock, so I might as well tell you something. The third most important thing is the location of your attention while you're breathing. Okay? So what we say is, people teach, a bit of abdominal breathing. Breathe through the belly and all of that. So our view is, no, breathe through the center of your chest. Through the heart area, if you will. Right? 3 reasons why we say breathe through here, not breathe through there. Or don't imagine you're sucking the air up through the soles of your feet, or it's coming in through the crown chakra, or whatever. You could do any of that stuff. But where is your attention when you're breathing? We'd say put your attention in the center of your chest. 3 reasons why you put your attention in the center of your chest is, number 1, the heart generates more electrical power than any other part of your system. So even though there are billions of nerve cells up here, right, and only a couple of 100,000 down here, the power output of your heart is 3.5 watts, which is way greater than the power output of your brain. Because what happens in the brain, the electrical charges go in all different directions, it all cancels. Right? But here, you've got something called auto-coherence. The heart has to synchronize in order for it to pump. So electrically speaking, the heart generates 50 times more electrical output than the brain. If you want to record somebody's brain waves, you have to put a clip on their ear, just as Neil's got here, and pick up the heartbeat, and then you have to mathematically remove the heartbeat, because the heartbeat is this big, and the brain beat, or brain wave, is only that big. So the heart's way more powerful electrically. Electromagnetically, the heart generates 5,000 times more energy than the brain. So it starts to, figure of the pun, turn on its head. Hang on, what's controlling what here? Right? You've got to start to look a bit more broadly in terms of the human system as a system. We're so brain-dominant, brain-centric. So if you're putting your attention in the heart, you're putting your attention where the primary source of power is, here. So that's the first reason. The second reason, if you drop your attention and breathe through here, it gets you out of the noise in your head, which is where we're usually confused. Just to drop into the body and breathe through the center of your chest. And the third reason, which we're going to get onto, is actually we're ultimately going to go from controlling that physiology up to the emotional state and show you actually how do you turn on the passion, how do you turn on a positive emotional state when an awful lot of our positive emotions are experienced in the center of our chest. Hence, I love my son with all my heart. Why do I even say that? Because that's actually where I feel it. The awareness might be in our mind, but where do we feel the sensation of love? In the center of the chest, right? So where do you clutch the baby? You clutch them to your heart, right? You don't clutch the baby to your knee, you know. I love my son with all my knee. We don't say that because we don't feel it in our knee, we feel it in the center of our chest. So the very fact that you put your attention on the center of your chest or in the heart area starts to drift you into a slightly more positive state. Does that make sense? So this last thing I want to just, while Neil's impressing you, give you this other bit. So in my view, the big myth of performance, I think, is that it's something to do with adrenaline. You know, you'll see this in business or in sport. You know, if you're not a bit pumped, you won't perform. Go to that meeting, you've got to be a bit psyched. That exam, you've got to be a bit psyched up, right? And so, no, you've got to be relaxed under pressure. No, you've got to be psyched, you've got to be relaxed. You've got to be psyched, you've got to be relaxed. You get both types of advice, neither is true. It's not about sympathetic activation or even parasympathetic activation. It's not about how hot the system is or how cold the system is. There's another part of your system which really determines your output, which is whether you're in a negative emotional state. So if this is adrenaline and this is a chemical called acetylcholine, ACH, negative emotion, right, underpinned by the hormone cortisol, or positive emotion, underpinned by the anabolic hormones like DHEA, dihydroepiandrosterone, banned substance in the Olympics. You get caught taking those tablets, you're out. Because they're performance enhancers. In the States, this is known as the elixir of youth, the vitality hormone. You can get them on the internet, right? DHEA tablets. Point is, you don't need them, right?
You're 93, aren't you?
Yes, 407. So when you heat somebody's system up, you can heat it up negatively, anxiety, anger, frustration, or you can heat it up positively, passion, right? Determination, focus. The heart rate over here is 120 but erratic. The heart rate is 120 over here but coherent. Both of them have the same heart rate. Both of them have the same amount of adrenaline. That will impair your performance, that will enhance your performance. And passion, as we've heard, is the #1 predictor of performance across every aspect of life, including health. If you're passionate about something, you'll do it better. It predicts all types of performance. Similarly, when you cool the system down, relaxation is not necessarily valuable. In fact, I've given lectures to some of my medical colleagues entitled "Relaxation Can Kill You." Right? So that to be sometimes lecture titles. When I can draw the crowd in. Relaxation, and it can, because you can be relaxed and negative. So apathy, boredom, detachment, indifference, all those kind of things. The heart rate is erratic, averaging 50. Now, you can be relaxed and it can be positive, so things like contentment, curiosity, equanimity, those kind of things. Heart rate coherent and 50. So it doesn't really matter whether the heart rate is 50 or 120. What matters is, am I on the left or am I on the right? And so the secret really, if you map most organizations, is you'll see a rightward skew. That people are rightward skewed over here. If you don't believe me, go and stand next to the coffee machine. And you will hear the negative hum. Do you know what so-and-so said to me? Yes, he didn't say that. That's outrageous. Right? And then you bump into somebody over here, full of the joys of spring. What's up with you? How dare you be that cheerful? You don't realise it's shit. The economy. Right? And they're trying to drag you back over to here. That's reality. Right? So as a leader, you really, and a large part of the work that we do with folks is get them over here. How do you live your life over here? So somebody referenced Csikszentmihalyi in the zone, or the state of flow, is about being over here. And how controllable is our emotional performance? To pick up Chris's point, can we live our life over here? Now, as you've seen, most people haven't got control of their behavior, let alone their thinking, let alone their feeling, let alone their emotional, their physiology. So how do you live your life over here? That's where the training comes in. And we've shown in Neil, right, that when we've taught him how to regulate his physiology, right? That's the start point. The regulation of the physiology will at least get you to the midpoint. You at least get to the midpoint with regulating your physiology. So you'll get to this point just through breathing. So if you learn to breathe properly, you'll at least get to the midpoint. How you get over here is you've got to learn to regulate what emotional state you're in. Now, most people have got no control over that. Their emotional state is dependent on everything outside them, not on what's going on the inside. So you've got to learn to train yourself to stay over this side of the thing. But if you take nothing away, at least you can get yourself to the midpoint by learning how to breathe properly. Right? So to help you remember that, think of breathe as an acronym. B stands for breathe, R stands for rhythmically, E stands for evenly, and through the heart every day. So if you breathe rhythmically, evenly, and through the heart every day, you'll at least get to the midpoint. Okay? Thank you. Well done.